Well, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Diane, can you hear me okay? Outstanding. So, welcome to your role in recruiting and retention. And remember, the eligible members of this particular class are support team members 2 years plus and senior staff and above. So, as I thought a little bit about this particular course, I kind of asked myself a little bit of a rhetorical question. And I said, what is it that we're selling at Gray, Gray, and Gray? And I thought about it and I said, okay, well, it's certainly accounting services, it's business advisory services, it's consulting at the highest level, it's wealth management services. And yes, of course, as you consider our core values, the underlying, or really the basic platform, is technical competence. It's about integrity. It's about credibility. But beyond these foundational items, what is it that we're really, really selling? And when I answered that question, the conclusion I reached was we're selling ourselves. We're selling ourselves. We're in a people business. And maybe you know some folks that sell widgets. Maybe you know some folks that sell legal services, groceries, accounting services, whatever it may be. But our success as a business has everything to do with our competence, with our integrity as an individual, with our integrity as a firm, with our credibility. But at the end of the day, it's all about our likability. And that's, in many ways, the common theme behind what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about recruiting like-minded people. How do we recruit like-minded people? And how do we retain like-minded people? So, today's class is really intended to be thought-provoking. You're going to learn a lot, and what it's going to do, like in the 3 other classes that I've had the opportunity to attend, what it's going to do is it's going to cause you to really self-reflect. Self-reflect why? Because this topic of recruiting and retaining, it's not a Lisa Mavilla or a Janet Bados issue. Certainly it's a core function in their responsibility, but it's really a firm-wide opportunity. Because if there's anything, then we talk about the independence of Gray, Gray, and Gray, and where we'll be 20 years from now, and 30 years from now, and 40 years from now, if there's any risk at all, it's about recruiting like-minded people. And, as I consider the classes that many of you had the opportunity to go, this is the 4th Gray Academy program that we've held in just a few weeks. And I thought about what each one of them have to offer. Well, Know Your Firm, that Kelly was so instrumental in, what that did was gave everybody kind of a baseline understanding of our firm so that you could develop your own elevator speech when it came to attracting and recruiting others to our organization. Think about the program we just held on communication in motivation. And so much of that had to do with emotional intelligence and listening and professional presence and so on. So much of that has to do with how we present ourselves in an interview. Because keep in mind, somebody comes into Gray, Gray, and Gray. We're not just interviewing them, they're interviewing us as well. And they're evaluating us, and is this an organization that I truly want to be a part of? The art of feedback. Are we a culture where we promote two-way feedback and two-way communication that's effective? So, we rolled out our core values a number of months ago, and I guess so many of you are hiring managers. When you're out looking and you happen to be in a hiring situation, are we evaluating that person, and does it go beyond their technical competence and their professionalism and their integrity, but are we also evaluating them as somebody that will be a good fit within our firm from a core value perspective? So if there's any ask here today, before I introduce Kip, I guess the ask would be really stay engaged. And as I consider, my professional career, there are times when you tend to be somewhere else in a meeting and you're not fully engaged. If you can find a way to kind of compartmentalize things because you're all really busy, and you take the time and you really step out of your comfort zone today and really get engaged, I can guarantee you're going to get a ton out of this class. So with that said, Kip was here a few weeks ago. What I want to do is reintroduce her again. Kip has been involved in the people business, because that's really what Kip does. It's about the people business. It's for many, many years. And the people business, Kip has owned and operated one of the foremost people businesses in the Northeast for an awful long time. And from a recruiting standpoint, who better to speak about recruiting? Because recruiting in many ways is about matchmaking. It's understanding the employer and it's understanding the candidate and understanding where there in fact would be a long-term fit. And as I consider all the great work that Carla does and all the great work that Kip does as part of Hollister Institute, it's about truly unlocking the potential of people. And so when we thought a little bit about who could benefit the most from this class, we thought of you, and we thought about who is it that could present this class the best, and we really thought about Kip and Hollister Institute. So give her all the attention that she deserves, and thank you very much.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. Awesome. So, how's summer going? Great? Good. How do you all feel about this topic? Do you all feel that you're really good at attracting talent? Or is it one of those things that's a little bit of a challenge? Challenge. I hear challenge. What's challenging about it?
It's hard to know if it's the right fit when you sit with somebody for 20 minutes and talk with them.
Bingo. So what I'm hearing is it's hard to determine if someone is the right fit when you're sitting there with them for 20 minutes. That really resonates, right? Because people on an interview give you their best self, right? And also people on an interview are really good at knowing what you want. And so I want to engage you in a conversation today because this is about you. And I'm just going to be here holding the mirror up because the value you're going to get out of this is what you put into this. Because when I go into companies, each company is different. As Hank just described your culture, you have a culture in and of yourself, and you're all a part of that, and you all participate in that. And recruiting is something that by the end of this next hour, I want you all committed to. Because I think we tend to, even in my own organization, we tend to put it off on whether it's the leader, the head of HR, some of my companies have head of talent, and then the rest of us are just minions doing it and complaining that we don't have the right people on the bus, okay? And so I'd like you to be able to take this on with some enthusiasm. That's my commitment to you, is that my intention is by the end of this hour, you will have some enthusiasm and some new tools in your toolbox that are going to help you attract and then retain talent. So here's the intention. Support you in understanding Gray and Gray's philosophy on recruitment. And that's where I'm going to need your help. Proving your ability to recruit A players, right? I mean, we don't want mediocrity around us. But yet, how quickly do we get mediocrity out of our companies? So I'm going to talk a lot about that. To increase your interviewing skills. So every candidate has an incredible experience of Gray, and Gray. Whether or not you hire them, that is irrelevant. So we are just talking today about really connecting with great people, interviewing, keeping a pipeline going, regardless of even if you have a job. Open. And then to support you in creating a culture of retention. Because once we get everybody in here, it's really critical that we onboard them and keep them. And that we continue to have an inspiring culture. And you all are the chosen ones because you're the leaders. So you get to model the behavior. Because if you can't model the behavior, it's not going to work. So what do people look for in a job? What do you think people look for in a job?
Flexibility.
Flexibility. What else? Growth. Yes? And growth comes in different ways, right? You can have personal growth, you can have professional growth, a combination. You know, some firms are more hierarchical, and so it's really good to understand what a candidate means by growth. What else? People they're comfortable with. Culture. Does culture matter? Absolutely. I am here to tell you culture is one of the number one things that matters most. And especially, Hank said it earlier, you're a service company. So you are all about the people. You're about servicing people, but you're also about internally building people up. And I spoke about that in that feedback session. I hope you guys have been acknowledging each other since that session. So here's one of the things. According to the January 2016 Accounting Today, only 9% are really valuing, not that compensation doesn't matter, but compensation comes up only 9% of the time. And that can sometimes shock people because we think that people are all about the money, money, money. But especially today, especially with these millennials coming into the workforce, they want more. They want the workforce, they want the work-life balance, they want culture, and they do want flexibility. And that's what equates to the remaining part. And then also, according to a 2016 Career Trends report, employees value purpose over paycheck. So what do you all do for a living? You help others. Okay? We help others. You happen to be an accounting organization, right? That cranks out those audit reports and financial reports and helps me sleep at night because I don't even know what I'm reading half of the time. But it's more than that. There's purpose behind it. And if we aren't coming to work feeling aligned with the value system and the purpose, that's where breakdown exists. And then you have a culture that's a little bit dismantled. And you all have been working on this now for some time. I would say this, it's been a year to put this together, so you're on the right track. You're ahead of the competition. You're ahead of your competitors, which is great news. So what is Gray, and Gray's purpose? When you think about purpose here, what do you come up with? Because here's what happens. We tend to look at our jobs as this is what I do. This is what I do. And then someone will say, oh, so great. So how do you do it? Well, this is how we do it. I work in this department. I'm in audit. I'm in tax. And I have 2 people reporting into me, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the why, which is actually backwards. Because in the world of attracting talent, if you are starting with what you do, is what you do really exciting? Does anyone think what you do is like, you could sell me on what you do? And I'm not, is anyone saying it is absolutely so exciting? Okay, great. Okay, so I want to work with you. I want to work with you. Because I want to ask you right now, you are really excited by what you do. Okay, so just tell me factually what you do. Don't give the inspiration, just what do you do?
Factually, what do I do?
Yeah.
I review tax.
Okay, I review tax returns. Ugh. What else do you do? No, I'm working with you. Go.
I review, so the whole sentence should be, I review tax returns so that.
No, we're not there. No. I just want to know what you do.
Yeah.
You review tax returns. Okay.
And toward.
And what?
There is an end toward, with an end toward being concise and creative for my clients.
Okay, so now I review tax returns so that I can be concise and creative.
The work itself.
Okay, creative for my clients. Okay, so listen, I'm working with you. Don't you worry. We're going to get there. You're a perfect. Yeah. So if I am just telling you what I do, so here's what I do. I place people in jobs. That's what I do. That is a conversation ender. It's boring. It's just fact-based. So now, what you were doing was you were going into the how a little bit, right? Because you do it with creativity. But now I want to know why you do it. Because you got really lit up. So why do you do what you do?
Okay. It is going to be, again, a step process. We all need to work because we need money, and not that money is a motivator.
Right?
But we all work because, number one, we need to live off of something.
Right?
I have been lucky enough to find what sounds to you as boring, but to me is work that's fun to do.
Because you love it, okay? So this is what we're going to work on today. We're going to work on telling your stories because you got lit up. I would buy from you. Your face lit up. The rest of the rooms didn't. It doesn't mean that you all don't like what you do. It means we have to attract and retain talent, we have got to tell stories, okay? And first we have to understand Gray, Gray, and Gray's purpose, right? So what is Gray, Gray, and Gray's purpose? So if we could just look at what is Gray, Gray, and Gray about. This is going to explain exactly what we just spoke about. So really engage in this video. You're gonna love it.
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single...
So, does that make sense? Does that resonate? And does it make sense to you what I was doing? Yeah. Because it's the facts of what we do. And we usually start there, because we're going to talk a little bit about networking too. You start with what you do. And sometimes we can lose our audience if we're not starting with our why, right? Because my why is that I am here to transform lives. I love networking and connecting talent with opportunity. And then I can say what I do is I own a staffing company. I place people in jobs. So when you think about Gray, Gray & Gray's brand, the sales department isn't the whole company, but the whole company better be the sales department, okay? And when you think about that, what does that mean? It means that we can't leave recruiting to them over there, because we bring our whole selves into life and work. Even when you walk into Dunkin' Donuts, even when you are at a restaurant, when you think about brand and you think about your brand identity, what makes Gray, Gray & Gray that special place? What are a few things? I watched your video. So what are a few things that just come to top of your mind that make it special? Yes?
The going beyond the numbers really helps us help our businesses reach potential, and that's what drives me.
Love it. So what she said is that our going beyond the numbers is what really makes us different and what drives me, right? Now that to me, if I heard that, it's like, okay, you're an individual that cares about me and creating some financial success for myself and supporting me on that journey. And I will be more engaged with you because there's your why. What else? What are your offerings here? Yes.
There's many ways that we can do it, right?
Yes.
Have all the knowledge and collaborate with each other to find the best way that will help the client.
Right.
You know, and it's really in picking everyone's brain and having a teamwork to do the best.
Okay, so she brings up another point. Without team, will you be as successful as you possibly can? You can't, you're not a one-person show, right? You need each other to collaborate and to work together and to be in flow. Do you all understand when you have a member on the team that just doesn't fit in? Right? They just don't fit in culturally. That creates negative impact, and we'll get to that as well. So I want you to think about your brand as Gray, Gray & Gray. And there's a worksheet that I'm going to have you pay a little bit of attention to. Your brand is Gray, Gray & Gray, which aligns with the value system. So why are you at Gray, Gray & Gray? Why are you at Gray, Gray & Gray as opposed to any other accounting firm? How about you? You've been here 10 years. I saw you on that video. You were spectacular. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's nice of you. So, so I would say 10 years ago when I had the interview, I saw the opportunity. The firm had been around for a long time. I liked the direction it was going in, and since I've been here, we continue going that direction, and that's why I stick around.
Okay. So what he said is that he showed up here 10 years ago. Weren't you right out of college?
I was.
Okay. Did you have other offers?
A few others.
Okay. You had 3 other offers. So I took Gray, Gray & Gray because it was a firm on the move. They valued their people. They valued not only caring about the clients and customers, but also caring about who I am. And I have been here now for 10 years and have grown within the organization and am absolutely so proud to be here, as he said on that video. Now, is that a brand story that resonates with anybody here? I hope so. Because we have an opportunity to craft our personal story. So his is different because he's been here 10 years, right out of college. But that's a story he will share. That is a story that is going to grab a candidate or an individual at a networking event, which we're going to get to next because I know you guys love networking. I can see it on your faces. So this is what we're talking about, is aligning your personal story with the brand of the company, okay? So if you're looking at how you're going to tell your story, because here's the thing, it's about connection. It's not about the words. So with you, I got it. You are so happy, you are so inspired and inspiring. You lit up. You will be able to attract talent when you're in that zone. When you're in that zone. And when you're in that zone is when you want to go out and you want to cast out the line. And when you're not in that zone, you do not want to pick up the phone and recruit. If you're having a bad day, I would prefer you don't go to the networking event than go because you should. Okay? Because you're ruining what is happening in this company that is creating magic. But we all have to bring ourselves to the table to attract the right talent. And we all have to be responsible to say, it's on me. It's on me to fill the pipeline. So, you know, I love this. I mean, people hear your music more than your words. That's energy. That's energy. You know, half of you could be maybe asleep at what I'm saying, but my energy is moving you more than my words. And that's the purpose of how to attract and retain talent, one of the ways. So we connect through storytelling. So I want you to take a moment at your tables, and I want each of you to come up with your personal story. Thinking about Simon's video, thinking about what I've said, and what resonates with you that aligns with Gray, and Gray's values, and why I'm here. And it's going to be different for each member. And then you're going to share it around your tables, and then we're going to come back together, because what I want this to be is a working session where you're actually leaving understanding why different members of the team are here that you never even knew why they were here. Because you also are able to use different people's stories when you you kind of have them in your little database. So so as an example, he just shared with me his story. I'm going to use his story when I'm interviewing a millennial coming into Gray, and Gray. I'm going to say, you know what? We have a guy, what's your name again? Jim. We have this guy, Jim. He's been here 10 years. And I remember, I wasn't here, but he tells this story that he graduated and he had 3 different offers, and then I get to tell his story because his story is going to resonate more than my story, because I'm a baby boomer, to this millennial. And then I'm going to say to the millennial, I want you to meet Jim. I want you to have a conversation with Jim. This is how you guys got to start working, right? So take a moment and craft your story, your personal story of your why, what's in the inner circle, like Simon said, and have it align with Gray, and Gray's brand. Does this make sense? Does anyone have questions? So take 2 moments to do that. And this is a really important part of this whole session. And if anybody is stuck, raise your hands, and Carla and myself will come around and will help you by asking you some probing questions. But it's simple. It's simple. This is your elevator pitch. It's not a long dissertation, because you're going to lose the audience. You really, first impressions are lasting impressions. And a first impression is pretty brief, right? How many of you have been to a networking event and you can't get away from someone that just keeps talking? That's really annoying. So your story wants to inspire from your heart, from what resonates with you. Okay, I'd like to make a request that you choose one person from your table that you feel like has a story that just would inspire somebody to come into your department or into the company by sharing this story. Okay, we're pointing at you. You. Come on. Stand up. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Come on up. Yeah.
So my story of how I came here, I was working for a family business at the time, working for my parents, and a friend of a friend was an employee here at the time, and they found out that I went to school to be a CPA and whatnot. So they were very interested in trying to get me in here to try and get a job here. I think part of it was because they knew that they were going to get a commission off of me getting hired here. So they pushed and pushed and pushed. I said, all right, well, I'll come in for an interview. So I came in for an interview. I met with some of the partners, and this was like 16 or 17 years ago. You know, I thought that they were pretty good guys and that I could get along with them, and so I took the job. So since that point in time, I've met my wife here.
That's awesome.
She's worked here a little bit longer than me.
Wow. See, I would, you know what? Lead with that. I met my wife. Awesome. And thank you so much for being nominated and doing a fantastic job. So here's the point. Your personal stories are your personal brand. Have fun with it. Have fun with it. You know, now your story, you got me when you said you met my wife here. That is like, that's awesome, right? I mean, that's a community. That's a place where there's community. I'm not saying you necessarily lead with that. But what also got me with your story is you've been here 16 years. You've been here 16 years. So if we're going to recruit someone who's been at a competitor for 8 to 10 years, I want them to talk to you. And I want them to talk to you, been here 10 years. This is where you got to start sharing your stories with one another, not only to get to know one another a little bit better, but to create a sticky culture. Because we don't share enough of ourselves. Because we come to work and we do. We are human doers instead of human beings. And guess what attracts talent to our companies? It's the being part. It's the being part. We can love what we do, but it's the how and the why. So on your worksheets, does anyone else want to take a stab at this? Not yet. You want to polish it up. Hank, great.
So, I wasn't even designated, but I'll talk anyway.
Good.
So it was probably about a year and a half ago that Kip actually introduced me to Joe and to Gray. And my experience was that of leading and managing professional service organizations. But what was really important to me when I had the opportunity to meet with all of the partners and directors and so on and so forth, was there a cultural fit? And did I feel like that I could get that human connection? And certainly it had to be vice versa. So during my 15 months here, I've had the opportunity to connect with people at a really significant level. And Kelly and I were joking earlier, we had the opportunity recently to go to a CPA America event in New Jersey. So picture this, we're in a car, Mark Keshkagan is driving, Joe Chickarello is in the passenger seat, he's in a bad mood and all he wants to do is have a cup of cappuccino. And I have Rich Hirsch on one side, I'm in the middle and I got Kelly Maroney in the back. And we drove for like 5 hours all the way to New Jersey. And it was so much fun because I always liked these people, I enjoyed these people, but we had an absolute ball and we developed this connection that I thought was just absolutely incredible. So from my perspective, yeah, doing the work is important, but I love the people that are here. And the partners and the managers and the directors and the staff, there's no egos here. They're people that are genuinely really good people, and that's what makes me want to come to work every day, is having that people connection. And so that's my story, highlighted by that recent event where I attended that CPA America situation in New Jersey and had to drive 10 hours with these guys.
Thank you. So, there's a story, right? I was at an event here. I forget what it was, your restaurant association event. And I met a person from Eastern Bank. So he came up to me and he shook my hand and he gave me his business card, and I was kind of thinking, okay, here we go. So I said, he then told me a story. And he said that, I said, oh, Eastern Bank, I know the CEO, I love him. And he said, you know what? I actually am a boomerang at Eastern Bank. And just a month ago, we have this company-wide meeting, and he acknowledged me in the meeting. And he brought me up and acknowledged me and welcomed me back. Now, Eastern Bank is a huge company. And to him, he was telling me a story, but what else was he telling a story about? The culture, the CEO, the brand of Eastern Bank. which then lands on me saying, you're telling me a story about yourself boomeranging. You're also telling me a story about Eastern Bank, which I already know, but it resonated with me. So what did I do? I said, I'm going to email your CEO. So I emailed the CEO, and I blind CC'd him with no other reason than to acknowledge, right? To acknowledge the CEO for saying, you were mentioned, your brand matters. This is what we are. We are human ambassadors for Gray, Gray, and Gray, if you choose to take it on. Now, I'm going to be really bold. If you don't choose to take it on, you really might want to look at how far you will develop yourself in your leadership, because we always put our leadership development on other people. Well, they aren't, I'm not. Instead of saying, wow, I am responsible here for recruiting talent in whatever job I do. And I'm also responsible for bringing my whole self to work. And so your personal story is one that just helps grab people out there in the community, as well as internally. Hank's story, right? We're together as employees and colleagues, and all of a sudden I am having an experience with you guys. Because when we just come in and do the work, we're like every other accounting firm. Make sense? Great. So there's also a place, I also want to talk to you a little bit about your personal brand, and we're going to move into networking. And as you're looking at your brand, if you look at this page, what is your personal brand? It is, we give you option A or B, which you can do on your own time, but it's like, I help clients with solving some of their problems around their financial issues and their P&Ls so they can sleep at night, okay? So it's what I do, why I do it, and so that. And that, when you get into networking, is absolutely fabulous, so that you're not saying, I'm in the audit department at Gray, Gray, and Gray, okay? And then B is typically clients come to us when they're really frustrated. For me, they come to me because they're really frustrated about finding passive job seekers. They're getting a lot of people that are unemployed, and they really want to find passive job seekers, people who are content but might want a new opportunity aligned with their value system. And so I help them to solve some of the people problems. That's a lot better than me saying, I place people in jobs. Because it's just going to cut the conversation off. Okay? So again, your personal brand goes with your style of how you tell stories, right? And people who are entrepreneurs are constantly telling stories. And that's what enriches a culture. That's what grabs people, and especially in interviews. So when you interview someone, and we're going to move to that after networking, when you interview someone, we tend to be asking all these questions. And we have to remember who we are being, because we want them to be ignited by us, not bored by us, right? So it's not about the technical. Interviews are not about the technical aptitude. It's about the emotional intelligence that one has. And before we go there, we're going to move to your favorite topic, which is networking. How many of you love networking? Awesome. 4 people out of 30. Yes, I love it. Most people don't, okay? So it doesn't mean that because you don't like networking, you're a bad person. It's the norm to not like networking. But I want you to learn how to network so that it becomes effortless. Because I think there's something misconstrued about networking. I think that we think that I have to go to this networking event to get business. I have to come back with business. I have to come back to my boss and tell him I spoke to 6 people and I booked 5 appointments. Does that resonate? That is absolutely not the right way to network. So networking is simply having a conversation. It is engaging in a conversation. It is getting to know people. It is being able to be altruistic with what are you about? What's your story? Now that gets a lot of people, and you can steal my line. I actually ask people at a networking event, tell me your story. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know, what's your story? Well, like, whatever you want to share with me. It's awesome, it works. You know why? Because we all are robots. So we go to a networking event, usually we hide over in the corner, and I'd love to go find you who are hiding and ask that question, because I get you going, okay? But we go and we hide, and then we are robots saying what we do. You'll never attract talent. Please stay home, okay? But we have to get better at this thing called networking, because with social media, with the technology, it is where it's at. And we have to have the meetups on the computer, but we also have to stay engaged in the community. And you want to go to places where all of your competitors go, like MSCPA. Yeah, I'm speaking there in November. I'm sure I'll see some of you there. But you also want to go to different ponds. You want to go to ponds where you graduated from college. You want to go to a millennial pond. You want to go to a baby boomer pond, somewhere where no one else is. And your purpose is being yourself. Can you imagine? Just being yourself. Can you imagine no agenda? Because there's this thing called givers and takers. You can tell who the takers are at an event. They come to you, they say, hi, how are you? What's your name?
Rich.
Hey, Rich, you got a business card?
Sure.
Hey, great. What do you do?
I'm an auditor.
An auditor. Oh, good. Okay, I don't need an auditor. Nice to meet you, Rich. Hey, how are you? Jim, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Do you have a business card?
I sure do.
Yeah, what do you do?
I'm an auditor, like Rich.
Oh, gosh, you guys all hang out together. Wow, this is good. Okay, so, but takers go to events to get. Givers go to events to give. And that's the shift. And then I feel better, because I'm not going to get, I'm going to give. I'm going to just get to know you, Rich. What do you do? What lights you up? Love your shirt. Gosh, you know, do you like riding bikes? Whatever. You gotta be a little curious instead of wanting to take. And this is why we hate networking. The other reason we hate networking is because, for the most part, in accounting, we're introverts. Call a spade, unless you're in BD, okay? Or maybe HR or marketing. And there are some people in accounting that are absolutely should be salespeople, but like Mark is one. But a lot of others are more linear, and that's okay. So then you feel like a failure before you walk into the room, because I'm shy. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to open up conversation. Does it help you to look at this like you're walking into a family of people that are just human beings, and you're just going to have conversations, and you may not even get to what you do for a living. And you don't now need to give a dissertation about what you do, because we just went over that. So if you live and be your personal brand, you will actually start liking networking events. But here's what you have to commit to. Again, remember when I said don't go and pick up the phone to recruit someone if you aren't in flow? Don't go to a networking event if you're not in flow. If it's checking the box to look good to your boss so that at the end of the quarterly review, I can say I went to 4 networking events and there were no results. That's not it. Networking is about seed planting, okay? You're sowing seeds. But the corn isn't going to grow to 4 feet by tomorrow. So it's a long-term process, and it's an iterative process that is just developing your brand and your network and living the Gray, Gray, and Gray brand. You're representing your brand everywhere you go, even down to how you dress, okay? So I was on Nantucket this past weekend. I walked into Ralph Lauren. That place has a brand. I walk in, the sales clerks, they're all living, breathing the Ralph Lauren brand. I walk into Starbucks. Those people have a brand. They tell a story. They're smiling. They're engaging. I go into Dunkin' Donuts. It's a different brand. But Dunkin' Donuts just started playing music. And I walked in there and I was like, I started dancing with the women because their faces lit up because the music went on. You each have a personal brand. What is it? I go into Lilly Pulitzer because my daughter Sadie loves it. I can't stand it. And that place has a brand. And those sales clerks represent the brand. So even down to how we dress is our brand out in networking. So when you think about effective networking and you think about just having conversations and being able to say, what are you about? Being able to say, you know what, we solve problems. I solve problems with people, pipeline, you know, identifying passive job seekers for clients, helping cultures come alive in companies. And it isn't about talking. It's about listening. So you listen more when you network, and that also takes the edge off of you. So you're always ping-ponging, because usually you will see when you network how many people really care about you. It's not really, I usually ask all the questions. I'm a question asker because I'm a seeker, I'm a giver. Not always, sometimes I'm a taker, but in networking events, I'm a giver. But when I'm asking all the questions, I take note in my head of who I'm speaking with. But what happens when I'm asking all the questions? Do I leave creating impact for that person? Absolutely. Because people love to talk about themselves. And so you just get to ask questions. And when they ask you a question, I give one sentence answer. Like if it's what you do, oh, you know, I help transform lives. I mean, we have an incredible, you know, 2-day retreats that are phenomenal. I go right back to them, because I don't think they really care. If they care, they just got the hook, and then they'll ask me more questions. So that's your litmus test, right? That's your litmus test. We tend to talk too much. And the other part is mirroring. How many of you get, and this is going to lead into the interview, but mirroring is being able to model someone else. So if I am going up and meeting someone who is really hyper, I'll be hyper. If I'm going up meeting a techie guy, I'm going to be a little nerdier. You know, I'm going to be a little quirky with my head, and my voice is going to drop a little. And if I'm meeting with an accountant, I am going to smile a lot, and I'm going to feed a lot of positive energy and vibes, because I know how uncomfortable you are. And I will probably say, you hate networking, don't you? And then that person starts laughing, and they'll say, does it show that much? And I'll say, no, I just know. I know your industry. And then they open up. And they're like so happy that I went to them over in the corner at the food table. Or together with another accountant from the same company. You know? So you get to choose. You get to choose if you want to take this on. Now, what time is it? 11 o'clock. Okay. I don't think we have time. I wanted to do a speedy networking event with you all so you can breathe now and be relieved, because I wanted you to get up out of your chairs and go network. But I really want to get to the interview, because the interview is critical, and we only have another half hour. We always have a lot of information to cover. So I will talk to Hank about creating a networking event here where you guys just come together, 4 to 5. You got your elevator pitch, and you are just, maybe you could have a little beer, but you guys are just networking and talking and engaging. And you got to grade yourselves. You know, you got to grade yourselves and say, would I want to come work with you? And if I don't want to come work with you, you might not want to be on the interview committee. So I hope, unless it's mandated that you're interviewing all the time, you might be the person that hooks someone but knows that this is not my strength, I want to develop it, so go see Susie. And you got to come see my department. And that's why we're all the sales department for this firm. Because without the greatest people, we will not survive, especially in a service industry. I know it very well. So moving on, does anyone have questions about networking? The last thing I will say on networking, you have to prepare. So usually there are lists of who's going to attend a networking event before, and it's good to do your research. Look at the company. Who's their accounting firm? If you know their accounting firm, you get to say, hey, I noticed you were here. Don't you guys work with Alexander and something? And yeah, how did you know? You know what? I think someone told me that. It's so great. You have a little information and you subtly bring it up. Or you could say something like, I noticed, I looked on your website and your values so align with Gray, Gray, and Gray's. Isn't it great to work in a company like that? So doing a little bit of research so that you can ping pong over a dialogue that starts conversation about them, not you. Not you. Gets them sticky with you and remembering you. And if they're interested in you, at the end of your dialogue, you want them asking you for a business card. You want them saying, hey, do you have a business card? I love what you said about the Hollister Institute. I'm going to go to your website and look at it. And I walk away and I'm like, awesome. That's what I wanted. I want a slow drip, little ping pong right there, and have them say, you mentioned it, you didn't tell me much. I don't want to tell you much. But I want you to want to have another conversation with me. That's all we want. So does it make sense for us to talk again? Looking people up on LinkedIn is also very critical, and this then comes into the interview too. So does anyone have questions before we move on from networking? When is your next networking event? People going out on the road this week? No? Summertime. I encourage you to get out there, because it actually gets to become more fun and more easy, and it is where you hear what clients are up to, you hear what pain they're going through, and you can just be in the inquiry and share concern, but not look to say, let's have a meeting, because we don't need to be pushy. This environment, the 21st century, is not about push. It's about relating. It's about compassion. It's about empathy. It's about, I get what you're saying. It's a different sales approach, which actually suits you guys more. I think you could do this. You just didn't know that this is what you could do. We have to go and do. So, yes.
Networking also happens in informal environments.
Always.
At the ball fields, at church, wherever you are, and those are actually easier environments because you're more comfortable and you're not thinking them in a networking environment. But I can think back to clients that have come to the firm, and that's where I've met them, standing beside them on the ball field. And we have a commonality. We're dads, or we both have kids on the field. They're doing something else, and then it's just talking about what you're doing. So when you ask, when's your next networking opportunity, it could be this afternoon. It could be Saturday, Sunday. It's all the time, actual. And not to be scared that you're on all the time, but to know that, just be who you are.
Exactly. I'm so glad you bring that up, because it is not about, we're networking the minute we leave here. I'm networking when I go to a restaurant. I'm networking when I'm standing in line next to somebody. On the beach in Nantucket, this guy comes up to us and it's like, oh my gosh, you work at UBS. We know, I know Sally. I'm going in there to teach meditation. That is so cool. So you are always, and same, we get so many clients on the ball field. One of my employees asked and requested to leave early to go coach Little League. And I said, absolutely. And he said, I am going to commit. This is a business opportunity. I see it that way because there's so many CEOs who have kids on my team. And I said, great, just don't sell. Just be yourself, Steve, and the business will flow to you. And he actually got a client out of it just by being himself. So this is the point. It's not, the more you can be yourselves, the more business will flock your way. So moving on to the interview, interviewing best practices. So I've already said it, always be interviewing. I would make a recommendation that each of you would be pipelining Pipelining means just filling your funnel, whether you have a job or not, with at least 5 connections a week. Now, if that's too much, 2 connections a week. Start small. And when I say connections, it doesn't mean, it means just reaching out through LinkedIn. 5 new connections a week on LinkedIn. Research people on LinkedIn, see who they are. What do we have in common? We have 2 sons that play hockey. So being able to connect with 5 people a week, or wherever you are out, just being able to say, hey, let's grab a cup of coffee. It is a great way to stay in the flow of being an ambassador for the firm. And bringing your A game. So, a lot of times we think that we're interviewing someone else, and Hank said it earlier. They're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. So sometimes in my office, I will see somebody interviewing someone and their head is down in the paper writing, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's no eye contact, right? It's about eye contact. It's about building trust. First impressions are the lasting impressions. So it's even who you are, how you're dressed to go out and meet and greet that person with the eye contact, with the firm handshake, with the welcome to Gray, Gray, and Gray. It's not like, oh, I was sitting in traffic this morning and I'm exhausted and my baby was up all night. Hi, that is energy you're putting out, which will probably make them choose a different firm. And so you're always, always bringing your A game to the interview or opt out. Get a colleague. Say, you know what, I'm off my game. I don't know what it is. Knowing the profile of an A candidate. This is something I would love to challenge you all to do, is to really look at department to department, and probably with support from HR, but saying, what is the A profile? And this is not the technical skills. I mean, it's the technical skills, but it's more importantly the emotional skills, the characteristics. We want people that were captains of their lacrosse team. We want people that are coachable. We want people that, value family, value communication. So you have that, because then we will be developing behavioral event questions that measure for that, so that we're not making mistakes, because mistakes are really costly. And preparing is critical. So a lot of what we've led up to today is prep work, which I can tell we want to do some work on this, right? It's knowing the Gray, Gray, and Gray story. As I walked around to some of the tables, what I loved hearing is that a lot of what you all feel is the culture. So you have that down. What I would advise you want to work on is your personal story and brand to plug into it, your why, because that's true alignment, and that will resonate with a candidate. They will take your job over another one because of the people they met here. And especially if you're all singing out of the same hymnal. So the interview process, you usually are meeting 3 to 4 people in a process. And when they see that you are like-minded with the rest of the people that they're meeting, they then start believing. If they just meet one superstar and the rest are kind of average, they have questions. Because we place these people, right? So they'll say, I love Tracy. She had such great energy. But then I met Ed. And he didn't ask me anything. He didn't even know my resume. And they're judging you. They're judging you. So the prep work, what goes into prep for a really great interview, is knowing your story, being able to tie to the core values, but then it's being able to check the candidate out on LinkedIn before you're meeting them. Because you might have people in common that you know. You might, looking them up on Facebook, just seeing where does this person hang out, so that you can develop specific questions that can relate to not only the position, but also who they are as a human being. And you might have someone in the company that went to UMass Amherst. And it's like, oh my gosh, we have 2 people here who went to UMass Amherst. So you're always trying to connect the dots before they walk in the office, so that you're not seeing their resume for the first time, flying in from a meeting and saying, oh my gosh, I got to go interview this person. That will totally show up for that person who's getting interviewed, because we get that feedback all the time. Who is good interview, who's not a good interview, where are the values not aligned in companies when I go on the interview, and the person then takes the job at BCG instead of McKinsey. So that alignment is important. And discussing, asking follow-up questions. So when you're asking questions, and we'll get to this when we get to the behavioral event part, but it's really important to say, tell me more about that. Or how did that occur to you? Or, wow, so what happened next? Because an interview is really a ping pong game. It's going back and forth, and it's about being engaged with one another, not having your list of questions, like the checklist, and saying, okay, next. So what did you like about your past job? So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Those are the ones that are going to be dead in the water, and that person's not going to be inspired. So you're the one leading the interview, and you're the one that is, your energy is bringing into the interview what your why is, that ties to the values at Gray, Gray, and Gray. Discussing references. This is a really awesome tip. Because when I interview someone, first of all, people always know you're going to check references. But I want to get them cozy. I want to get to really know them. I want them to let their hair down. So I will set it up in a way where I will say, okay, so you know we're going to check references. So tell me, what are they really going to say? Give me what they're really going to say. Give me an example of one of your references, and what is something that is going to be said that is going to shock me? And I say it with a smile on my face, and I say it in an engaging way, because this person now feels safe with me. And they're going to want me to know, because I'm going to call the reference anyway. And so then they'll say, okay, well, I was young when I took the first job at Bracebridge. And so if you called Paul, he'd probably tell you that, you know, I've grown up a lot, but I was late, you know, in the first quarter a few times. Now, am I going to judge him for telling me that? Potentially. But I'm also experiencing someone being really authentic with me. And if you are authentic with me, I would rather hear it from you, for you to come clean with this, and then I'm going to acknowledge you. Because I'm going to say to you, you know, that takes a lot of courage for you to share that with me. And I love your authenticity and being open with me. Because that's one of our values here, is integrity and being of your word. And you know I'm going to find that out anyway. So this is a way for you to really see if they're the right culture fit. Because we are interviewing for culture fit most. The technical skills should be the given. Okay? The technical skills should be the given. So, and then taking notes. I'm a big proponent of taking notes, because you will hear people say phrases. So I do not like it when people are grammatically incorrect. My 4 children, I correct them all the time. So if someone says, me and her, I write it down. Me and her. Like I write it down. So some of those isms that they say, I want to remember, so that when we have the committee debriefing after, I can share that she has work to do in this area. Other things, if they say something that is shocking to me, or it's how they said it, I want to capture that information, because you all have that debrief that is a packet that you'll fill out after, and you want to bring substance to reviewing people. You want to bring factual information, not gut like I just didn't feel, because that's what gets us into trouble when we hire. We haven't done a good job interviewing behavioral event-wise, because we're just going by a feeling, whether it's good or bad. And that comes to my next point, avoid hiring in your own image. We all do it. I did it for the first 8 years of owning a company. I wanted everybody like me. That would be horrible, because I need to hire people that are my shadow self, so that the job gets done. And you all have the PI, correct, that you give to candidates? So that's another area to prep for with the predictive index, is using that to come up with some thought-provoking questions around some of the concerns you have as you review a PI. Like, as an example, if someone isn't a great team player, it shows that they're low in one area. You will ask some questions about how they operated in a team. Where did they not fit into a team? And then they'll tell you, and we'll get to this. And then what happened? And then, oh, tell me more about that. Oh, you must have felt horrible. Anytime they go into the storytelling, I'm right there with them. And I'm not judging. I'm actually saying, oh my gosh, tell me more. So that they just say more, more, more. So it's the style with which you're not saying, oh, judgment, 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 and then they freeze. So you really, the capturing the authenticity in the interview so someone is really real with you is what the whole purpose is.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the practical question on, checking them out on LinkedIn. So I know you can do that anonymously. So should you do it anonymously or not?
Well, that's a great question. So I really don't care if somebody knows. I think it's okay. Now, some people want to be anonymous, which is fine. But if I think it's kind of human nature right now to say, hey, I was preparing and I noticed you on LinkedIn. I noticed we have a few connections. That shows you're doing your due diligence. And in today's economy, we need to do more due diligence than we do because we have access to it. So now ignorance is obsolete because we have access to absolutely everything. And to show someone that we really care about who we bring into the company, and it's very competitive to get in here, and we do a lot of due diligence, and here's some pre-work that I did, that's good for them to know. Yeah. Yes. So preparing the behavioral interview questions. How many of you have experience now with interviewing this way? Little bit? And how has it worked?
I don't think I've ever conducted a behavioral interview, but I've been interviewed that way.
Awesome. Okay, so he has never conducted a behavioral event interview, but you have been interviewed that way. So this is great. So as you were interviewed that way, what was it like for you as the candidate? What did that feel like?
I think I just felt like I had to be a little bit cautious.
Yes.
Because it's very open-ended. Tell me about an experience where you worked in a team and there was discord and people didn't get along. Tell me what happened and your role in that, and those type of questions came up. So.
Right. And this is the point. We ask behavioral event questions because you can't fudge it as the candidate. So it does put you a little bit on guard. So just the essence of asking a behavioral event question kind of has the candidate saying, uh-oh, because anyone can say, so this is the job, so what do you think? So we're looking for someone that's a people person. So can you tell me about yourself? I mean, you're just giving them a layup and they're going to tell you, they're going to sell to you. So a time when you really were frustrated at work, what was that like? Tell me what happened. How were you feeling? What did you do? Oh my gosh, you went to the CEO? Were there repercussions? Oh, well, no, because no, I just don't know. So you're always following up with the question, but you're in their play. You're in their life. And when you get in their life, they forget they're in an interview. It shifts the whole dynamics if you develop the strength and the muscle in this area, which I highly recommend, because the cost of hiring people is so huge. We each have our cost. I don't know what Gray's is, but my motto is always hire slow, fire fast. So these behavioral event questions are questions that you prepare before the interview. So you do not go, we can no longer wing interviews. You look like fools, the candidates judge you, and remember, even if you're not hiring the candidate, they're going to go out into the marketplace and talk about you. And they will either talk positively or negatively. I had a client that had an experience with a candidate that had a horrible interview experience and went and posted some horrible stuff on Yelp and on their website and never even got hired. So your candidates are also walking commercials for you. So if you're not going to hire them, you still want to give them great feedback. You want to educate them on the why you didn't get it, but that we thoroughly enjoyed our time with you. Let's keep in touch. You never know what the future will hold. Maybe I could connect you with this person, this person, this person. You're always thinking altruistically. It's really important. I mean, especially now with Glassdoor, all of these websites where you can just go on and say how horrible your experience is. And you know, people usually like to report that more than it was fabulous. It's just human nature, and we have to accept it. So you're preparing the questions. You have your A player outlined for what the characteristics are. You have your values, which are in your packet. So you always, you know, another question I like to ask, I want to know what due diligence they've done on us. So I say, so, tell me, you know, did you research us? What do you know about us? Do you know what our values are? What did you like about us? Why are you here? How, you know, where else have you been? To just warm up the room a little bit. And then you move into the behavioral event questions that mirror what you're looking for. And so we're going to take a moment now for you all to think, are you all looking to hire people now? Yes, there's a nod. Okay, great. So if you can think of a position you're hiring for and come up with 1 or 2 behavioral event questions, and I'm going to give you some to think about so that I'll help you with this. Because behavioral event questions are always experiential in nature. So it is a time when. Tell me a time when you were meant to create some change in your department. Maybe it's in a project flow, maybe it's in a report that needed to be tweaked for a client. Tell me what happened. How did that go? And then they'll start telling you, and then you can say, so what did you do? What did others do? Because you're also going to learn, they might start talking about, well, we, and when you hear we, what is that? It does denote team player, but it also, to me, says, are you hiding? What did you do? What were your tasks? Oh, well, I didn't bring the client in. Oh, okay, so tell me how that works in your organization. Well, Jackie brings a client in, so now I'm thinking, okay, so you're not a BD person. You're an account manager, which is fine. You know, so it's you want to really delve into the tactical with what they did. What actions did you take? And then what were the outcomes? So you all have something called SMART that you, or not SMART, but what is it, Hank? That you model by. Well, it is the behavioral event, so it's okay. Yeah, okay. So a time when questioning on what competency you're looking for, and then being able to drill down on what were the outcomes. So Carla and I will move around and help you guys to just like kind of have this sink in with whatever roles you're looking for. So how was that? Was everyone able to come up with some good ones? I had fun with some people. You know, I want to say one more point about these behavioral event questions. Just asking them makes the candidate leave feeling differently about you, whether they get hired or not, because you are putting in so much energy into being in their world. So it separates you from the get-go just by the style of that. And you want to remember to keep probing with interest and asking more questions. Tell me more about that. How did that happen? How did that make you feel? Oh my gosh, then what? And once you do this, you're going to become better interviewers, and you also will be able to, I think, have a higher retention rate. So post-interview process, you all have to create that. There is an interview sheet that you all have. I recommend you meet together pretty quickly after everyone's interviewed so that you can debrief live. This is not something to do in email. Stuff gets lost in translation. If you are interviewing for emotional intelligence, we have to bring our emotional intelligence to the table and not hide behind the computer, right?
Do you have a point of view during the interview process about when it's beneficial to have a group interview versus individual?
I think, so I love group interviews, and my recommendation on a group interview, it's not the first interview, because that can be a little intimidating to somebody. I think you need to bond, you need to have the trust and rapport first, and you want to say, is it worth these 3 people's time for you to come back? And if that's the case, I love it, because you're also you have to orchestrate who's going to be the good cop, the bad cop, the neutral cop with the questions, and it gives you an opportunity for that to watch how a candidate is if they're out with a client and there's more than one person. So I think it's fabulous. I just wouldn't do it the first round. I don't think it's really fair to the candidate. You know, you're coming in the first round, it was with 5 of us. It's like, oh my gosh, as if it's not already intimidating.
So, can I
yes.
So we often do 2, like if we're interviewing, especially for entry level, we do 2 of us, and then if we like them, we always call a partner after. You think 2 is still too many?
No. No, I think 2 is fine. Yeah, I think 2 is fine. It's just a group when you go to 3 or 4. Right? But 2, but I also would manage expectations. You're going to be coming in, you're going to be meeting with myself and also Paul, because you're also going to see if they did do any due diligence on you. It tells you a lot. Did they look you up on LinkedIn? Did you see a white paper I wrote? Did you see a post I just sent on LinkedIn? All of that. So it brings awareness. Okay, the impact of attrition. Oh my gosh. Do you think there's any part of attrition that can be positive, that can be cathartic, that can be healthy? Yes. Great. Definitely. Definitely. As we morph our organizations and as we take organizations from one point to another point, it always mandates some healthy attrition to move some people eloquently with grace, move them on, because you can't get from A to B, B to C with the same exact talent and competencies and skill sets. And the more we own that and that we're in conversations with people about that, I'm going through this right now in my own company, and it's how you do it. Because we're just looking at roles and we're looking at growth and we're looking at strategy and we're saying, what lights you up? And what lights you up isn't, creating these forms and everything that are needed. So it's allowing people to say, you know what, I'm not sure that's me. And that the way you go through positive attrition is all in style and communication and transparency. And it's beautifully done if done well. Now, what are the costs associated with just plain negative attrition? It's huge. It's huge. I'll go back here. It's usually people keep talent 9 months longer on average than you should. Now, you have to come up within your own firm and within each position of by which time do we feel we should know that this person is the right fit, right? So maybe for a front desk position, it's like, okay, within the first month, we know if this person is going to work or not work. Maybe in one of your audit departments, it's 3 to 6 months. But you have to have that dialogue with the candidate ongoingly as they're onboarded into the company so that there's richness of communication and no hard feelings. It's just that it might be the wrong fit. But what we tend to do is we don't communicate. We have our questions. we go complain to someone else, we say we got to keep a watch on this, and this person has no idea, and then we say, well, they have no idea. So now HR says, well, we got to start talking to them. And now you're saying, oh my gosh, I just know they're not going to work. But now we haven't been open and upfront from day one, and so now it costs us another 6 to 8 months to now be in dialogue, get you on a performance improvement plan, and it's a big waste of time. So on average, you want to look at what time frame are we going to really determine if this person is right or wrong. And the cost of losing people, I mean, you just take the annual salary plus 25% plus all, it is huge. Not to mention what it does in the marketplace. So again, these people leave, they're negative, and they paint the city red, and your name is on it. And then we say we have a great culture. Yes?
I tend to do that anyway. I've had numerous situations where, oh my God, I'm shocked, but we have documented
Great. So,
and there still seem to be shocked.
yes. So the question is, don't people do that anyway? And we have documentation, and they still say they're shocked. Yes, welcome to the human condition. However, we get to sleep at night because we did it with integrity. So, I totally agree with you. As long as you're dotting I's, crossing T's, we cannot control how you're going to react, and nor is that our responsibility. But what our responsibility is to be transparent with communication, saying here's some areas where I'm concerned. I'm really concerned about this, and I want to communicate it with you. I want to communicate it early. See, the thing is, we give people too much time. Across the board, too much time. This is in every company we work with. And if you have questions, we need to nail the questions, really look at measured improvement in a short amount of time, or this we need to agree will not be the right position. Now, when you handle that well and they're still angry, I'm sorry, don't even lose sleep over it. Yeah.
I think it's more of a personality than a technical, someone just comes tired and you're like, they're just not clicking or gelling, the right fit, whatever the terminology you want to use.
Well, so this is the problem, right? Because that is a soft skill that's hard to measure and hard to communicate, but not really. If at the front end we're onboarding you and we're saying, at Gray, Gray, and Gray, culture is as important as the technical skills in our company. And emotional intelligence is what we are ongoingly learning and developing in ourselves, self-awareness. And so we might get to a point where 3 months goes by and it might not be the right culture fit. And that is a gift to both you and me and the organization. And we will be open about that.
So, you say that like when you hire them, when you onboard, like.
I say that because you don't want people to be scared by that, right? I mean, here you've just hired me. No, but part of hiring is coachability. Well, anyway, in our company. So I want to know that you're coachable. So then in our first weeks, within the first month, we're talking to you about expectations, and we're talking to you about coachability, and we're talking to you about culture. And then I'm coaching you to that in those first 3 months, because this is the hard part. We think, they're just not the right culture fit, but they're doing the job. And then we don't talk to them about that. And then 3 months goes by, and we all know it. We all know Johnny is not who we thought when we were interviewing him. We didn't behavioral event interview him. Shoot. That's when and you can talk about that stuff at the front end, is my point. Does that make sense? Okay, so wrapping up, creating a culture that teaches and models emotional intelligence. And this is why it starts with your own personal stories. Because when you are self-aware about how you show up in your life, how you show up in the world, how you see your job as constantly being an ambassador of Gray, Gray, and Gray and taking that on, that then creates the richness and it feeds the culture and it makes attracting and retaining talent so much easier. And becoming generous with acknowledgement. I talked about this last time when we talked about feedback. Little acknowledgement to each other, to a new hire, to even when you're interviewing somebody, So suppose I'm interviewing somebody and I know I'm not going to hire them. I acknowledge them. I acknowledge them a lot because I always feel badly when I don't hire them, especially when it's a job that reports right into me, because I want to stay in relationship with that person and for them not to take it personally. And so even acknowledgement on interviews is really critical when you're thinking they might not work out. But you're acknowledging them for who they are, what they did, the presentation they made, whatever, so that they're feeling good about Gray, Gray, and Gray. Again, whether they're hired or not. You know, and 69% of employees say that they'd work harder if they felt their efforts were recognized. And that's so easy to do. Especially the millennials, they want acknowledgement. I just had lunch with one of my millennials yesterday, and it was, you know, he's one of the top performers. He's doing really well. And I have acknowledged him, but I realized as we had lunch how much that lunch meant to him. He was just so excited at the end of that lunch that he had his voice heard. And he had great ideas. And so that's another way to create the stickiness of culture. Take your new people out and say, hey, how can we perfect process? How can we perfect culture? What do we need to do to keep you happy and engaged? And guess what? They tell you. They have expectations. And we, the leaders, have to be 2 steps ahead of them. And if we're not 2 steps ahead of them, we have to at least be asking them, because they can help us. They can guide us. 78% of employees said being recognized motivates them in their job. So we get more motivation out of creating this culture of passion and inspiration. And then creating a culture rich with feedback and learning how to effectively communicate and resolve conflict, which is how you wrap it all up. So, are you ready to take it on? It'll take a little bit of muscle building, right? Because, you know, I can come here and present for an hour and a half, but then I leave. But I encourage you in your departments and with Hank and with you to really take this on, because it is a competitive market right now. We have so many clients looking for the top talent, and you want to get the A's in here because you're all A's. So, congratulations.